Ladies and gentlemen, I think I should begin by saying a little bit about the difficulty of the title New Chapter or Same Story. The main difficulty I have, particularly with regard to the global war on terrorism, is that there isn't a same story so far as the Bush administration is concerned. It hasn't, I think, it wasn't a particularly consistent administration, either over time or within particular periods. There were real divisions of view among the participants. So those looking for continuity will be able to find things that suggest continuity, and those looking for discontinuities will also be able to do so, arising from this fundamental lack of consistency on the part of the Bush the younger administration. Let me give you just a few examples of these inconsistencies. We can refer to the examples as Mark I and Mark II if we like. They don't exactly coincide with each other, and they don't necessarily correlate with Bush's first term and his second term. First thing to look at is whether the global war on terrorism was intended to have universal applicability to all those engaged in perpetrating sub-state violence and all governments who got involved in helping such actors. It sounded pretty straightforward at the beginning after 9/11. Newt Gingrich, a former Republican speaker and on pretty good terms with most in the Bush administration, wrote on the 15th of October 2001, "Our only legitimate goal must be to destroy all systems of terrorism around the globe." And he added that it should be made clear to the leaderships of the countries who harbour terrorists that they face a stark choice: eliminate the terrorists operating in your country, or the United States and the coalition will assist your own people in removing you. Well, that's pretty straightforward, and I think the administration initially didn't dissent from that rhetorical position. But over time, there is an evolution. No one date, I think, stands out, but gradually the Western struggle against terrorism evolved into a struggle against Islamic jihadis, mostly, of course, from the greater Middle East, and those countries held likely to sponsor such jihadis, particularly Iraq and Iran. Over time, the US government under Bush showed almost no interest in the ongoing terrorist struggle in Sri Lanka. It lasted for many years, they say it's now ending. The American role was negligible. They weren't that interested in the terrorism of the Tamil Tigers. And towards the end of the Bush administration, perhaps a bit surprisingly, it was decided by the United States to lead most NATO countries into recognizing the new regime in Pristina, the Kosovo independent country, so-called, though not recognized at the United Nations, opposed bitterly by Russia and China. President Bush thus found himself giving endorsement to the KLA terrorist group. He doesn't seem to have found that that was at all difficult to do, despite all the rhetoric over the years of his administration about the evils of terrorism. So there's the first of the inconsistencies, the move away from a general condemnation of terrorism towards a condemnation of particular jihadis. Then there are the divisions, all well known of course, among the principal actors in the Bush administration. Some discern three broad strands. I think there are really only two, but here are the three possibles. One would be the optimistic neocons, characterised perhaps by Wolfowitz. A second strand would be the pessimistic realists, characterised by those who agreed with Donald Rumsfeld at the Pentagon and Vice President Cheney. And finally, there could be a case for saying there were the religious end-timers, those born again, or believing in the imminent transformation of the world by the second coming of Jesus Christ. Actually, I think this strand is largely mythical at the level of any policy making. But maybe, Chairman, you're a bit nearer to that view than I am as to...
understand it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I don't know who they are, these people who held important positions in the administration who really believe in the imminence of the second coming. Possibly the President himself. Possibly him. But then, he didn't make the policy, did he? Always, he was a cork on the water much of the time. So I would say the real split is between the optimistic neocons and the pessimistic realists. And it made a very big difference which of these groups was on top in terms of the actions that were taken by the United States and beyond the US, the West generally. Then a third example of lack of consistency in the Bush period would seem to me be between the pre-surge America in Iraq and the post-surge. Again, the personalities are important. Rumsfeld, up to the point when he resigned, keeping a close check on the number of boots on the ground in the Middle East, and particularly in Iraq. And on the other hand, Mr. Gates putting himself at the head of the group who believed in a massive physical presence in Iraq, which superficially appears to have had some success. I think it's very superficial myself. It does seem to me that people like those who were close to the Iranians decided not to take too much action. They knew the United States would probably leave at the end of the Bush presidency, and they chose not really to fight the surge with all the vigour that they might have done. We can discuss that later.